Welcome. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to install the drivers for the ChipWhisperer Capture Rev 2. So I assume you followed the previous video and you already have ChipWhisperer Capture, and as part of that, the Pi USB drivers were installed. So the Pi USB driver installed, just to remind you, this meant that from my Python distribution, I had done a pip install Pi USB. So if you've already executed that command, then you are good to go and you have the drivers, or you installed them some other method. So the other thing we need to do is install the Windows drivers for the ChipWhisperer Capture. So to do this, I'm going to simply plug the mini USB on the side of the ChipWhisperer Capture, and it will try to install the drivers, and it won't have anything most likely. So we have to tell it where to find the drivers. So there's two spots you can get the drivers from: the ChipWhisperer files or the release pages. Let's see here. We have the Windows drivers only. So somewhere on the release pages there'll be this. The page may change a bit, it looks a bit differently. And for some reason it doesn't always work on Chrome, so I had Internet Explorer open here. So the other option is that some of the ChipWhisperer releases will come with the drivers. Often they won't, to avoid this issue with Chrome not being able to download it. So once I have the file, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this somewhere. I'll just put it on the desktop for now. We can delete it after. Alright, so with the ChipWhisperer Capture hardware plugged in, again the mini USB on the side is what I'm using. We have a device manager, and we'll have this unknown device. So I'm going to go and hit Update Driver, and it gives us an option. So we don't want to search automatically because it'll never find it. I'm going to go and see where I pop this onto the desktop, so I can copy that directory and say Browse. And you can just copy and paste that same directory, or you could go find it, and that should be fine. It'll figure it out. Include subfolders, we obviously want that. And it'll give you this error about not verifying the publisher. As a note, so I'm using the 32-bit edition of Windows here. The 64-bit actually should also install the libusb driver. The open source libusb driver is supposed to work on the 64-bit version of Windows, which I normally use as well. This is just for the tutorial. I have the 32-bit edition, so don't worry that you get that error. You should not have an issue with driver signing. Alright, so there's actually two drivers that are going to end up being installed. The first one is the Cypress Easy USB driver, which you see there. And once that one's installed, I can then trigger the installation of the second driver. So by default, we have this this ChipWhisperer firmware loader set up, and you may actually see another option which includes a zip file. All of these default should be fine, so you shouldn't need to change anything. And these just point to the FPGA bitstream location. So from Tools, we can then hit Download ChipWhisperer Firmware, and what you'll see is that on the Python or the debug logging, it'll say Found Unprogrammed Device, and it's going to program it. This will actually trigger an installation of a second driver. So you have to wait till the second driver installation is done. It'll now come up as ZTix module, and I'll run that again. Normally you'd only have to run this once. It's just the first time we had this issue where it did not have the full driver complement installed. So now we see programmed FPGA bitstream. So that is good. That means we programmed the FPGA, and we should see the status LED start blinking on it. As an example, I can now connect to the ChipWhisperer system. So there we go. We've now installed the required drivers and connected to the ChipWhisperer system. As a note, if you look at some older documentation, you'll see references to installing Java. That is no longer required as of the 0.07 release of ChipWhisperer. So that's not an issue anymore. If you're using 0.08 release or later, you will see an extra option here that says, do you want to use a zip file? The zip file just simplifies the management of some of the additional features, so you can ignore that. But again, all of the defaults should work, and this should give you the correct results.